Welcome, everybody, to the Brenton On Tour Podcast. It's the life section. I am joined by an old touring friend, Mr. Raine Maida, Our Lady Peace. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Brent?
I'm doing okay, man. I'm just, these late night Zoom session podcasts, I always commend my guests that make the time for it because somebody like yourself that's super, super slammed and busy, I'm assuming that this is the last thing you want to do. So thank you, sir, for making the time to come on today.
Oh God, yeah, no, don't be. This is actually. It's kind of nice to end the day on a conversation and not like a business Zoom or in a studio or fighting with my kids.
I mean, isn't it funny how we really up until March, it was phones and texts. Maybe there was a FaceTime in there, but this is. Everything is Zoom all the time now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
I
know, man. I start my day with Zooms for like 3 hours, which is pretty new to me. And I'm not, it's not like I'm getting used to it. I'm definitely used to it, but it is I don't know. I find like I don't prepare for it as much because you just hop on, you just press, that link and you're on. And there's something psychologically where I don't, it's not that I don't treat it seriously, but I'm like literally doing something. I'm like, oh shit, I got to Zoom, and I go do it. And, you're all of a sudden you're engaged in like heavy stuff and like real business stuff. And it's pretty wild.
It kind of puts you right in it. It's very interesting to me. So,
yeah.
Listen, this life cast is kind of focusing on my guest's sort of life and a bit of journey. We connected a couple months ago, just again on just because it was getting crazy for you with Juju and stuff, which we'll touch on. But I actually, outside of all the business and stuff, I just wanted to get you on to kind of chat about the journey of Raine Maida, through that process of trying to break through and make it as the band and then maintain it and all these different things that we've gone through. It's pretty crazy.
Interesting.
To see where it's kind of gone. So, Toronto boy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back, I mean, I think the thing about creativity for me has always been that one part. If I go back to like my journey, even to like fourth grade, I remember this little Catholic school I went to in Etobicoke, just outside of Toronto. I remember loving creative writing, and I think what's been constant through my life is just trying to hang on to that creative spark, because I knew I had it like I said, I don't know when you are in fourth grade, but as a 7 or 8 year old, like I actually had something, and then it kind of went away for a while, and then I was able to reconnect with it. And now it's just like hanging on to it for dear life. So, excuse me, whether it's music or tech, producing, writing, like anything, I don't paint, but watching my wife paint, just trying to always stay around it is really, really crucial to like my life force. And I've kind of like tried to set myself up so it's always around me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, once you get a taste of it and then you start, hence I don't make music anymore, so I started a podcast. Trying to keep going and to at least have great conversations and learn things about people. And I always find that they're really great conversations, and you get to learn a little bit about the journey, which is important to me to teach, especially now. Acts trying to break it. I mean, there's a million ways to try to break it, but coming through the process that you guys had to come through to get to that level is almost a ancient history now. There's a new process to doing it, and kind of the same. Was it a musical house for you, like, or a creative house for you that sparked that, or did something kind of, you found that on your own?
No, I definitely found it on my own. I went away to school in high school, and then I made a real effort because I found kind of music when I was 16. My parents split up a year before, and I really just would like kind of just dive into like Gabriel and the Stones and the Clash and just Rush and all these, like any artist that had albums that you could listen to like all the way through, so like real kind of, that kind of career type artist. U2 definitely early on, and REM and stuff. And so I just got lost in that. It became a bit of a religion to me. And so that's where I really started to connect. It's like, oh yeah, I remember I really loved creative writing when I was young. I just am so I got so lost in lyrics and words by the artist that I'm talking about, Neil Young, and it became one of these things where it's like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to write words, but I guess if I'm going to explore that, I probably need to sing them, I guess. So it was about picking up a guitar, going through my journals, just kind of like, I'm totally self-taught because of that need just to express myself. And after high school, I stayed in Toronto. I went to U of T, but it was like, let's find a band. So it all started in Toronto, and just kind of like anything, worked my ass off, but it takes luck. We got a record deal and continue to work our asses off. It's like, no matter where you are in that creative journey, I think that's what I was trying to get at earlier. It's like, you just want to continue to have that inspired kind of, I don't know, baseline, at least when you go to do something, because I've had moments in our career, like there's, like any career, there's peaks and valleys where I haven't felt that inspired, where I felt like, not why am I doing this, but it just doesn't have that juice anymore. So being able to reconnect with it is really important.
That's I'm fascinated by the lyric process, writing lyrics, and you hear about it all the time about bands, the structure of a band between, they write the music and he writes the lyrics, or vice versa. And you hear all the funny stories about, like, hilarious story years ago when Metallica were like, we're going to spread the lyrics around. And it was, and it was like, no, we're not doing that anymore. And I'm always amazed when you hear something that resonates with somebody. Does that start with the melody for you? Like, you kind of hum it and you're going, oh wait, I've got this in my journal, or you're kind of going to a place to write that lyric that's going to hook people in?
It's different. I definitely keep journals. To this day, I still even write some journals out, even though we all use notes on our iPhones. But I think the magic for me, and I try to do this every morning. I grab a coffee, I do whatever business shit I got to do, and then I grab a guitar. And it's really about like finding that moment where you maybe start, for me, I start finger picking. It's usually an acoustic guitar. So I start finger picking or playing chord progression or something, start humming a melody, and then a lyric pops out. And when those three things come together in that moment, and it's singular in the sense of it's just me, it's like eureka. And then it happens as well. Like, we don't do it as much anymore, especially during COVID, but like on stage before a show or at a sound check, and the bands they start something and I vibe off that, and a lyric and a melody comes. Sometimes that's just as powerful. But the purity of doing it on your own, I will say there's something incredibly special about that. But I am all for it. Like, there's this, he's got a new single. We just did a record with David Siddick from TV on the Radio for Spiritual Machines Part 2. And the first single is a song called Stop Making Stupid People Famous. I had that lyric for 2 years. That was something you start drilling down on. I got kids, I'm seeing them on social media. One of my good friends used to run VH1 and MTV, and he's kind of the guy that, he's an incredible music aficionado and fan. At the same time, he's part of that whole, all of a sudden, how does the guy I guess it was Paris Hilton has a show first, but then Flavor Flav, how does he has a reality show? What's happening here? It's like from Fight the Power, now he's on this really cheesy reality. It's just, you follow those breadcrumbs. Anyway, this lyric comes out, and I was like, okay, I have to make sure that has the right platform as terms of a track or a song. So I just held on to that until something came about. And yeah, I think that's the key. It's like never pushing stuff away. You let stuff in, and the stuff that's not great, you just let it filter through. But the stuff that sticks, man, it's so worth hanging on to. And it's just waiting, sometimes being patient for that moment, and Stop Making Stupid People Famous is kind of like an exercise in patience for me.
Did you do you remember the first song, song? I'm not talking about first hit, like going back to Naveed or anything like that. I'm talking about when you wrote a song and you're like, I could do this, and man, did I ever just do it well. This is the song. Holy shit, this is great. Like, what I mean? What was that? Was there a song in particular that you kind of hit for you and you're like, okay, I'm in all the way now. This is it.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of I just met Chantel, and she was on. We weren't able to be in the same city, but we were definitely friendly, and we were talking to each other one night, and she just had this really interesting way as a female and as just, I think, another artist. We would have these long conversations from like 1 till 4 in the morning, a lot, when we were just first kind of dating, but weren't around each other. And she was able to pull stuff out of me that no one ever had. And so we started talking about, my parents were divorced. What's that like? Her parents are together. Just relationships with my mom, with my dad, and all of a sudden it spirals into this kind of like cathartic, just discussion on life and what divorce does, and how you can become disconnected from a partner. Anyway, 4 a.m. kind of pops out, and I wrote that song basically right after I hung up the phone with her. I called our engineer. We were making Clumsy, and I called our engineer. I said, "Hey, do you mind meeting me like a few hours early before everyone comes in at like 1? And I just want to lay something down." So I went in and recorded that song, and the record was pretty close to being done. Clumsy was almost done. And I was there, and everyone kind of walks in and say, "Hey, what's going on?" I said, "Oh, I had this idea last night." And so I was really, really nervous to play it for anyone. And I think that's the epitome of how does this affect you as like a human? And throughout Naveed, throughout the making of Clumsy, I was always trying to get there, and I was always close, I felt. But I played 4 a.m. for everyone, and they just kind of like, everyone was speechless. And I was like, oh shit, this must really suck. Or pause, everyone took a beat, and then they were just like, wow. And so that kind of like, I don't know, it's courage is way too heavy, but just having the wherewithal to like be that raw, I guess, for me, because I'd never really spoken about anything as personal. That I kind of tend to hide behind lyrics. And I think for me as a songwriter, I actually respect that, in terms of not just giving it up and making it so succinct where someone knows exactly what you're talking about, because it takes some mystery out of it. But this song, it really made me feel like, okay, there's an artistry that I was able to tap into, maybe just for this moment, but definitely elevated the sense of songwriting for me.
That must have been an amazing feeling, because coming off of the success already of Naveed and just the monster of that record, and then as you said, Clumsy's almost done. This is a classic story you always hear. Well, the record was done, or it was almost done, and then we wrote this song, and then next thing you know, it's and there's no denying how huge that song was. So, man, that was a time, and I there was so many bands breaking in Canada at that time. And I wanted to, I don't know if I've ever asked you this question, but how many shows did you guys play before it really kicked in as far as the record deal and everything? Because everyone was around then, right? Like, I mean, I'm of the Earth was playing. I think the Tea Party were around, Moist. All these bands were kind of all breaking, or at the very least,
we were
like you were all giant at the same time.
Yeah, we were definitely a little bit later, just in terms of like getting our record out, and it didn't really click for us right away, because I don't know, we put the first single off of Naveed was a song called The Birdman, and it really wasn't a single. Moist had like real kind of hit songs, and Tea Party had more like radio, and The Birdman wasn't that song for us. So but I think even our label was like, it's, they just saw it as a slow build. And so it was wild, because we were out there busting our butts, but like we were first on every festival. And I'm Mother Earth and Moist and other Sloan, other bands were like, they'd already kind of like cracked that first level. So they were killing it. And we were like, the little guys in our little school bus or van kind of still doing it. But I mean, it was always inspiring, which was cool, because I was a big fan of Jag and his guitar playing, and I loved the way that record sounded. And it was just, it just felt like Canada was finally on the map in terms of like having its own scene and having music that was really credible and was speaking to like the youth. So we were fine to like ride the wave, and then slowly, that record just kind of kept going, and then started happening in the States. And I think, in typical fashion, it's like once it started to happen down here, and Starseed started to get on the radio, alternative radio down in the US, it's like, okay, Canada kind of took notice, and that's when the ascent for at least for OLP started.
Was there ever a moment for you though, when you coming through that, where it was like, well, I went to school, I guess I can go do this if this doesn't go? How close were you to maybe not going all the way with it, like stopping?
Yeah, I never even thought of that. I think once we started recording Naveed, the just the kind of kinetic energy of being a band, being in a studio, and then making music and we didn't care about the business. I knew nothing about the business. Like it really, literally, I don't remember what our record deal with Sony was probably for like 40 grand. You know what I mean? Like it was never about the money. It was never about like posturing. And, I remember I'm on the Earth, because I knew that story. It's like those guys signed a huge deal, like a co-deal with Capitol in the US and whatever label in Canada. And it was like millions of dollars. And they went to LA to record their deal. Like we were stuck in Etobicoke in this, in our producer's studio, which at that point, like it was pretty modest, to say the least. Like literally eating Taco Bell, Subway, making music, but never thinking anything less of it. And it was that excitement. And so from then, getting on the road and getting it out there, and definitely getting to see cities that I'd never seen, and being down in the US in terms of all these states and cities we've never been with, and playing with amazing bands, even though we were the small guys on the totem pole at that point. It was like, you just felt like there's a trajectory here, and we just got to keep working.
Like stopping at the Cambridge McDonald's in between Kitchener and Toronto on that stop home every time the touring stop. That many Big Macs. Oh my God. That's the Canadian gold record run there.
That is, yeah.
Anyways, you've had a lot of the same people around you guys a long time, but just you in particular, management, agent wise, you guys that's a rare story.
We're pretty loyal, maybe to a fault sometimes, but I think it's worked out. Like to us, it's all about the people, because there are so many, once you've been in the business for long enough, you realize there are just so many, kind of peaks and valley being an artist, in terms of, a lot of it is based on your expectations as an artist, but I think just in general, you're just going to go through, some amazing times, and then there's some dark stuff. And I think if you don't have people around there that you trust, it just makes it exponentially more dire when it's dark. And that's when bands so bad around us, and especially our management, and the ability to basically, I think, lean on them in some of those times where it was like heavy.
Through this process, though, you've obviously met Chantel, you get married, you have the kids. What kind of I want to get into the balance of touring as a father and a husband and all the rest of it. But I actually want to know what kind of father Raine Maida is. I've seen it in action, but for the listener and watcher, what kind of dad is Raine Maida? What kind of time are you dividing up amongst the boys and all this stuff?
Yeah, the boys come first. And if I am on the road, like, we did that Bush Live tour, I think it was like 43 shows in the US last summer. Even if there's a day off and I had to fly from Atlanta back to LA, spend 10 hours and then get back on a plane to make the next show, I'm doing it. So it really is about just trying to be in the moment in these different little pods as much as I can. And my kids obviously are one of the most important little pods. So we kind of do anything. And then I think the good thing is that we have kids are all kind of into music a bit or a lot. And that helps, just in terms of them maybe just understanding when I am away for a minute. Like they get that part of it. They get the creative part. OLP, definitely when we're making records, we'll come and just kind of, bunker down at our house when we're making a record, and they love it, and they love the energy of it. I think they love the friendships of it. So my kids are they're pretty well versed in the lifestyle of being an artist, and so that just makes it easier.
You get the balanced personalities, right? As of in just managing a band and being a part of that process, and the glue and sticking it together. But now you've got these little men floating around, each with their own personality. So as a dad, I mean, I got a daughter and a son, each one of them completely different from the other. And I'm trying to balance that, that like, what is she into? What is he into? What does she require for time from me? I'm touring, like, you know, right now I'm not, but I mean, I'm, 7 months a year on my regular gig. So it's pretty busy out there. So did you have any struggle with that? And this is me asking you as a father to a father, that balance of like learning each kid and trying to find your way through it. Or do you guys just collectively have all come together or is it a balance? Because it's very interesting to me to try to balance that.
I think kids are so intuitive, right? I think they kind of let you know, even if it's in more subversive ways, but you know, we get to see when they need attention or when they need something from you. And so even on the road, you know, I think, I don't know if it would have been a very, very kind of probably more difficult situation without things like this, without Zoom, without FaceTime, because I think that just having that ability to see your kid's face if I'm gone for a couple of weeks or they need to connect with me before a show or after a show or whatever, they, you know, that is much different than just talking on the phone. Like it's you might think it's subtle, but I'm sure you know, it's like being able to just go into private and hang with your kid. It's huge.
It changed everything for me touring wise. When my daughter was old enough to do Skype at the time, or how far we've come. It's only a couple months in, but it's like being able to do that I was able to parent from touring, like, you know, giving my wife a break who works nights and being able to be like, all right, well, no, let me sleep. I got this. I'm sure I'm in Germany, but did you do your homework or are you taking care of your brother? And it just added a whole level of easy.
I tell you, man, I'll be up in my room or I'll be up in the studio and like one of my sons will FaceTime me anyway. Like I could be in Austria. They're in their room. I'm like, dude, like I'm right here. What are you doing? And that's just kind of the way they communicate. So the transition when you're on the road, like it's a much easier thing with FaceTime for sure.
I have to tell you, I think I have to commend you on something that I years ago when we one of the tours, and I don't know if it was OLP or if it was with you and Chantel on its own. I have a feeling it was OLP, and you always made like at dinner time, you would make time to Skype in with them if you were away, and you would Skype in with them to eat dinner with them. I can't remember if it was every single day, but I remember you're like, it has to happen. I have to make sure that we're having dinner every night, so it's a bit of normalness. And I think I'm stealing that. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah. I mean, no, that's a good point. I think that's what you learn early on. It's like kids, that's what they react to is consistency, right? And that's when they start to freak out if they don't have that consistency. So it's, you know, it's definitely time zones, hotels, buses. It's not easy, but you can find a little bit of that every day. I think it definitely goes a long way.
Yeah. Are you still enjoying it?
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, the Chantel and I making our documentary, Doing Remember Son was a great extension of like how I see myself as a songwriter, as a collaborator. And then that probably led into this new LP record, you know, working with Dave Siddick, who I've been, just a huge fan of. I'm a massive TV on the radio fan, like literally one of my favorite bands of all time. And then Dave is the best producer that I've ever worked with, just in terms of his ability to produce music and understand songs, but then his creative ability, other stuff on guitar, on bass, the way he programs, he's a genius. He's a mad fucking genius, and it's an honor literally to work with him. So that's elevated, I think, where OLP maybe, you know, because we could have easily probably done this record on our own again, but it just infused a whole another element of creativity and fire. So I legitimately think there are moments on this new Spiritual Machines 2 record that just by far some of the best stuff OLP's ever done.
Not that you need to break it on here, but when are we expecting that?
Yeah, I think the single like probably right before Christmas, and then the album just shortly after in the new year.
I know you got to roll. I got a couple for you here. As this process is happening and you're making the record, it reminded me to ask you, what was the toughest record for you to make personally?
Absolutely, Healthy in Paranoid Times, like a really difficult record. We did it with Bob Rock after we'd done Gravity. Gravity did really well. We went back out to Maui. For some reason, it just didn't click with me. Like, even though Gravity we did there, everything was, when everything's new and like when you're driving to somewhere new and you don't really, it feels like it's taken forever. So because you don't really take it all in. Once you've done it, when you go back there to that place, it's like, oh, it just took 10 minutes and I know the directions. It was easy. Maui was kind of the same way. Like when the first time we were making Gravity, everything was new, and the waves and salt air and the food and Bob's place, and Bob's a great guy and a great host that way. It was fun. But then to go make another record there like freaked me out, and I then that panic attacks. I got shingles, but I got very stressed from the atmosphere because it was never what I was used to in terms of writing songs. Like I don't go sit outside in the sun and write a song. I'm the kind of guy that has to have something like brewing in me, and like almost like an alien, like trying to get out. And it's usually more of a cathartic experience than this happy experience. So Maui was like this juxtaposition where it just didn't jive. And so we had struggled with Bob there. And then we moved it out to Malibu. We moved it to Toronto at Metalworks, spent way too much money, and nothing really came that was great from it. There's some moments for sure, but man, it was just like the struggle of trying to finish that record for those types of reasons was just something we never encountered before, and I was never used to. Like, you never want to spend a year on a record. For me anyway, like it was just too much time on the same things, the same riffs, the same lyrics. Like I was just like, man, let's just scrap this thing and start fresh. But at that point, especially after the success of Gravity, we weren't able to do that. So we pushed through. And like I said, there's some moments on there, but overall, man, no, I get the shakes thinking about that record.
It sounds like you're on path for making a really great record coming up, though, that you're super stoked about. So everyone listening, tune in around Christmas. That sounds like we got something rad on the way. My friend Juju Live, which we've been talking about for a couple months, but man, it's a cool concept. How's it going for you over there? And let us know what that's all about.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in tech for the last 10 or 11 years on different projects, and my partners and I, we actually beta tested this really cool app for live music, and kind of making it a little bit like sneaker culture when you had a live show, and then COVID hit, and so part of a company I work with called Human Collective out of Toronto. Just an incredible team there. We flipped it to this thing like saying, what's going on with music right now with COVID? It's like, how do we empower artists again? So we just basically built Juju Live in like a few weeks. And it's really for that. It's really about empowering artists just to go make some money, create a show that isn't a typical show, because I know there's a lot of platforms that are doing like, hey, we go into a big club and we do the lights and the sound, and you just get that same experience at home. This is Juju Live's more about just creating something small. And it's funny, we've started having influencers from like TikTok do shows that aren't music at all on there and have huge success. So I don't know where it goes. Like I said, I'm involved in tech. I have another platform launching probably in a couple of weeks called Sing. That is, it's all about IP protection for artists and creators. This thing is so dope. It's a very amazing blockchain kind of platform that I think will be a game changer for artists. I've needed it forever, and every artist I've talked to has kind of needed it. We need to protect what we create, and there really isn't a system that helps artists do that. So that's pretty cool, and to just keep working on ideas, and not everything in the music space, but creators definitely we're such high output these days as a creator. I think you feel the same, like you're doing podcasts. It's like it's not about just making a record every 2 years anymore. We write so many songs, you make beats. I talk to so many different producers and engineers and artists that are just, they're hyper creative, and that's an amazing thing, but you need to protect that IP. So Sing is going to be a very cool app that does that.
It's funny, you mentioned earlier about staying creative and surrounding yourself with creativity, and then it just launches 17 other things for you. So
I know, right?
Killer. Yeah. Awesome, man. All right. So almost time to get out of here. Just tell me what the life of Raine Maida is like right now.
Yeah, it's Sing, it's Juju Live, it's OLP. My kid's making a record that is phenomenal. Like, my day starts at like 7:30 and I don't end until 2:30 in the morning. It's pretty bananas right now. But considering it's COVID, I'm pretty grateful that, we're as busy as we are doing stuff.
Awesome, man. Well, you made a little bit of the day for me today, and I can't thank you enough, man. I've had so many memories on tour with you and your wife and your team, and everybody has been awesome. And you've played an integral role in my journey through the path. So I can't thank you enough for making the time for me today, man.
Oh, man.
All the best with Juju, Sing, new OLP, and the other 49 projects you're probably adding before the end of the week. Stay safe down there, man. And I guess you're staying in America now. You're not going to move home. So, hey,
For now. I mean, we definitely, our hearts are in Canada for sure. So you never know. I never say never, man. Awesome. But great to connect. Thanks, Brent.
I really appreciate the time, dude. And
yeah, of course.
We'll talk soon, brother.
See you, dude.